Good morning and welcome to another fun-filled week in Arizona. We've been at this particular locality for a couple months now as I have been diligently working to convert the weekender or tack area room, which is this whole space here, into what they call a living quarters on this 3-horse slant. Now this is a custom built horse trailer by Sterling Coach, and they don't make these anymore, but honestly this thing is built like a tank and it's been a real treat to work on. I'm in the finishing stages of making sure all the latches work and all the trim is installed. This week I'm going to be turning on this giant electrical system that we have built in here and testing out all these lights. The plumbing and gas systems have all been tested as well, which means we're pretty much done with this thing. But if you remember last week, we had a bit of a dilemma and we had a serious blowout on the love hut. And I didn't realize until we drove up in the mountains that night that part of that blowout was the air suspension on the back of the truck took a hit. The air hose has a sever in it and we didn't have air suspension and we still don't. So today I've been waiting on parts to come in and they've arrived and it's time to put this air hose on the system. Now, for any of you that don't know, that's our little air pump right there. And it runs through a series of air hoses. And I mistakenly left this one unzip tied and it was resting right here. And that's where the jack went when we had the tire replaced at the store. I didn't realize it, but it's okay. It needs to be corrected anyways because that is not the safest way of running an air hose. Let's get this thing fixed so we can head to the store.
Look guys, it's the rock hounds of yield times.
Those skeletons are super creepy.
Yeah, they are.
That is a wagon full of Chris Cola.
That's fine.
He's drilling holes for dynamite.
And even more Chris Cola. Well, that's pretty awesome, guys. Oh, Shy, are you getting a little bit impatient, babe?
That doesn't make me drive faster, puppy. There's speed limits. There's speed limits.
Oh, despite what it looks like right now, she has done really, really well today as we have gone into town and gotten all of the supplies that we need. So that when Shane's done with this project, we just head straight out into the wilderness. That's going to be soon, right, Shane?
I certainly hope so. We will see.
Puppy says it's time to go find a river to play in.
Good morning, y'all. It is back to the horse trailer. It is time to start putting this thing together. I do believe I've got everything wired up with the exception of that one little outlet right there. I lied. But after I get that done, it's gonna be time to start testing this stuff. I'm getting excited. I can't wait to turn the lights on in here tonight. Let's keep going, y'all. We're almost done with this thing. One of my last things I gotta do is install a soft start on this air conditioner that we put up here. This is a low profile one, and this rack that you can see here was here when I got here. I've just attached all of the solar here with aluminum angle like this. And I've created one that pivots that sits just to the edge of this vent fan, allowing for maximum solar coverage and the ability to clearly still work on the air conditioner. So I got to take the cover off and then wire in this handy dandy device, which keeps this air conditioner from punching the battery so hard, because we intend on never having to plug this thing in to run the generator before plugging in, and then last resort is actually plugging in. This thing's getting power no matter which way we go. The goal is just to be as economic about the usage as possible. Any of you wondering what a soft start is, I'm going to do my best to explain it in the most layman terms I possibly can. Basically, this is a run capacitor and this is a start capacitor. That start capacitor takes a whole lot of power when you turn this thing on, which is in essence the jump start it takes to get the whole thing going. So what we've done is we have disconnected the wiring to this one. Now, some of these soft start installs, you physically cut the wiring off of this thing, and you have to be cautious because they actually store power inside of them, so it'll shock you. But I digress. This particular soft start is this box here, and it has a pigtail of colored wires that you run into this junction box, and you rewire the system to basically circumnavigate this. So this particular setup and the way this unit is wired, I was able to terminate them in the box, and I'll leave it here in case it ever needs to be used, because this is a brand new unit and I don't particularly want to damage a perfectly good solenoid if I don't have to. But it's a rather straightforward operation. There's 5 wires, and the instructions tell you exactly where to put the wires. But after you put this on, you'll be able to run this air conditioner without a huge hit to your solar system or your battery bank. Another fun little project I'm working on today is the 2-burner stove, and I wanted to educate you all how rudimentary of a device these camper stoves are. Back here is my copper line and my cutoff for the system. So if something's wrong with the stove, you can cut the gas off, and that allows you to still use the water heater if you need to, if you're having to replace this. You never know what's going to happen. And all you have to do is put in flare connections to a pre-installed male flare end. It's a 3/8 end on most of them. And all it does is it pushes gas through this little manifold and then out to each burner. The biggest thing for these is keep them clean. You don't want a bunch of grease down here in this area, and you want to make sure that you have proper airflow. So my box that it's sitting in, I can actually stick my hand under it, and I also allow for a small vent crack underneath the stove so the air can pass through it, because the grate that installs on top of it has some little vents in the back of it as well. You also want to make sure you go within the install parameters so nothing is too close, and all of these walls are far outside of my boundaries. Alright, let's put the top on this thing and move on. Well, I think I have officially wired all of my circuitry, but it's almost 7 o'clock, and as awesome it would be to flip that light switch on and then work into the dark, I'm going to choose to not turn that system on because, as always, I'm tired by this time of day, and I don't like to make mistakes. And there is no room for mistakes when you are turning on an electrical system for the first time. So I'm going to hesitate on that and entertain myself until I can't see anymore. This door still remains ugly versus this one has been decorated. Now, I'm not going to be putting a window in that door, but I am going to be putting this material on, so let's get that done. Yeah, that looks better. Unfortunately, I think that's all I'm going to do today. I can't see without my flashlight. Tomorrow, my friends, we'll do some more. And y'all, well, in the name of firing up this electrical system for the first time today, my personal practice is I'll go around the trailer or the rig that I'm building and I follow all my wires. I know where I made any sort of connections, any sort of terminal ends, and I check everything to make sure there's no loose wires, because the loose wire causes fire. Part of what I am doing today is also I found another weak spot in the trailer wiring. As I mentioned before, they just run a single positive line and connect all the lights to it. And that's the way automobiles have been wired for a very long time. And it grounds back to the trailer. So you'll have a short little ground coming off a light. You ground it to your frame. And then the positive runs back. And what it runs back to is a distribution block somewhere. And I found it here, which means this back corner in this aluminum box, this unshielded distribution block, is actually a positive distribution block. The reason I discovered it is we had to run a propane line down. So I've coated the propane in electrical conduit to make sure it never has the ability to bounce over and ground this thing out. I'm going to go through some effort to shield this and protect it the best I can as well. Now, my concern with this type of electrical wiring is if for whatever reason the positive line on the back of a light were to ever sever or break and it come in contact with the metal, which that's all this thing is made out of, it's gonna need to have a fuse or a breaker to diffuse the situation, because what's gonna happen is you're gonna start welding in essence. It's no different than taking a screwdriver and connecting the positive and negative terminal on your battery. That being said, this particular trailer doesn't have a fuse on it. So I'm going to install one of those today, because the loading lights back there, as well as this really powerful jack, still operate off of this battery. And I want to keep it that way, because if this thing ever needs to be replaced, it's a cheap purchase, versus if you do some damage to that very intricate electrical system in there we've built for our house system, it's going to be expensive. But this is the positive and negative for all of that wiring back there, and it just runs into this little flex tube and runs up into the bones of the trailer. So let's preserve this wiring and make it all correct. There we go. That's better. I was able to cut out a bunch of useless copper that was in there as well. It had a purpose at one point in its life, but this trailer's been altered by several people over the years, so oftentimes people just cut things and leave the wires. I like to get it out of my way. Okay, let's keep moving. Gotta test this stuff. Y'all, I certainly have been waiting weeks. I assume you have, and I know the owner of this trailer has. I've been waiting for that light to be running off of those batteries. I still have some more testing and labeling to do. I'm not actually charging them off of solar right now because, well, we're under a carport. So I don't have that on yet, and I need to get up there and clean the panels off so I can make sure that they are firing at 100%. Oh, life's so much better with light. Let's keep moving. Okay, I had to come out in the dark. So we have spotlights mounted all around the trailer. Oh yeah. Good morning, y'all. I'm out here with my fluffy friend as I'm waiting on the diesel truck to get here to move this trailer. That's right. We have reached the point of progression that we got to pull it out from underneath the carport. One, I need to test the solar, and two, I need to work on the saddle compartment on this side, and I can't open the door, unfortunately, because we pinned it up too tight against this wall a couple months ago when we parked it. All right, let's get this thing out of here. Man, that thing's cool looking. You haven't been able to see it not under the carport. Look at all that solar. Now that I've got the trailer out from underneath the canopy, it's going to allow me to start running my test on the solar system. But the biggest thing was being able to address this. What was just a storage closet, now it's going to be the tack room. That entire room I've been working in once held all the saddles and blankets and ropes and spurs and whatever else one needs to ride a horse. Obviously, I don't ride horses. But we got to get this space gussied up. So I've applied plywood to the walls. It was just aluminum studs with insulation. And now we're going to be hanging some snazzy carpet in here. Just wait.
What you got there, babe? That's very, very purple.
Snazzy. It's very snazzy. Is what snazzy purple. It is actually marine carpet. So the purpose of this would be put down on like boat deck, maybe on your pontoon party boat, but this is going to be going in the saddle room, so I got to get it all cut out. Look how rigid it is. It's great. Just every day that sunset is wild. I want to show you all what I accomplished today. Ha! Isn't that cool? I've got all these hooks I gotta hang in here tomorrow, but I think I've had about enough for today. Boy, that's pretty. Good morning, y'all. I am still running around this thing trying to finish up all my loose ends. I've got the solar firing away on top. And no fires down below. And I put the covers on the cabinet too because I really wanted to show y'all. I'm waiting on the batteries to fully charge. And then I'm gonna test that big beautiful machine up there. Let's keep moving. While I move around in circles in there, making sure I finish all my last little things that I just kept putting off. I've also got to get the hardware installed in here because we have a rack that holds saddles that has to go in there, as well as hooks. Now you can put your saddles in there, you can put your blankets and your bridles and your ropes and lassos and lariats and spurs and whatever else one needs. Purdy. All right, well, the sun is down. My saddle closet looks awesome. This thing is really neat. I obviously have never installed one of these before, but they have pins right there, and you can pull that pin and adjust your saddle height. So depending on the size saddle you have, you could put the bottom one really low so it's easy to put in there as you're taking it off your horse. I also have been working under light today. Now our batteries was quite low. They had been in storage for a year or two. So I wanted to get the system completely charged before I really started stress testing it with that air conditioner and the refrigerator, because both of those units run on 110. Everything else in here runs off of 12 volts. I spent time today getting this trim installed around the perimeter of the ceiling as well. And it matches ours that come across. It has a rope design in it. Very Western style. And a wonderful final touch to this ceiling. And I got enough of it that I think tomorrow I'm going to put trim around the baseboard that looks the same as well. We shall see. But that's all that's getting done today. Maybe we'll get some more done tomorrow. Maybe we'll get it all done tomorrow. But for now, I'm going to go find Shy and Kelsey, though. I'm pooped.
Oh, that's such a good girl. Finishing touches indeed. Oh, wow, it's beautiful in here, guys. I think he might have outdone himself. Hey, you're supposed to be staying over there. We're still working on it.
Oh, that looks better. You have to leave a gap around this LVP flooring, or else it can bow with a temperature swing inside of one of these aluminum tubes. So it's important to cover that bit up. Now that we got that on, got my door frame put in, and I'm gonna keep moving forward. I have some really cool curtain rods I'm gonna be putting in these windows today, as well as a shower curtain back here. You hear that, y'all? That hum, that beautiful hum. That's the humming sound of air conditioning. All ran on solar. Technically. It's ran off this giant battery pack that in turn is charged by the solar, but you know, let's not argue over brass tacks here. Let's celebrate. Hooray! That's gonna make the rest of what I gotta do in here much more enjoyable. It's quite warm today, y'all. So for any of you that's new to this horse trailer experience, the way I've built this is very unique. There are no exposed nails or screws or fasteners. Everything has been hidden, with the exception of any screws that are intended for the piece of wood that it's holding up to come out, such as this window frame, because this trailer has RV style windows. So if this glass ever breaks, you need to have access to these screws. So what I did was I made a 4-piece frame so that it's absolutely removable with just a few screws. And this morning I have the frame coming off because I'm putting in these curtain rods, and we're going to inset the curtains up inside of my frame so you can't see it. These are really neat too. We had a special order of these because they're so small. And you take these little trolleys. This is a very similar design to if you've ever been to a doctor's office and they have those curtains they move in between the beds or in the emergency room. This is what's up on the ceiling. Alright, let's get these in. Oh, that's super easy to install. There's just 4 screws you put up through the bottom of that track. Put in your little rollers and put your end caps on. And you are set. You can't even see it on this side. You can see the hooks though. That is a fantastic solution to curtains. 10 out of 10 suggest. The sun is set out there, and I've really been enjoying this air conditioner in here. Adding one final layer of this Polyway semi-gloss to all of this wood. Now that stuff is meant for hardwood flooring, so it cures very strong. And it recommends up to 3 coats. So I've been putting my last coat now that everything is put together, and it is all so shiny. I also put up this handy dandy shower curtain today. And unfortunately, I did attempt to install that lock, but this door is built stronger than any door I've ever seen on any RV. And obviously that's because a horse stares at it, so it has to be strong. Unfortunately, it's not going to accept that RV lock, so I gotta do something creative with it tomorrow, and I'll show you then. As well as, you know, get this place finally cleaned up and be done with it tomorrow. I know y'all are excited, I certainly am. But for now, I'm going to bed. I'm tired. I've learned working out here that you really have to pay attention to where the sun is. So early in the morning, the sun is over here, which means I got shadows to deal with. So it's wiser to work on things in the shadows versus as the sun travels, it ends up, you know, here. So there's no shadow. So this morning I am finishing out the propane system that is going to be back here in this area. We have a nice floor vent back here. So this is a relatively sealed area. I wouldn't say it's absolutely sealed, but if these things were to leak, most of the gas would get outside. With the addition of a propane alarm, you should be good to go. Now these bottles will remain off unless in use, and the only time that they're going to be used is to power that generator. But quite frankly, we are in Arizona and there is a space shuttle worth of solar on top of this thing, so the odds of having to use that generator are pretty much non-existent. The whole time I ran that air conditioner yesterday, the batteries remained at 100%. Now granted, we had full sun, but it can run all night long as well without depleting the batteries past a healthy amount of 25% off of that battery bank, which is why it's such a large battery bank. AC takes a sizable amount of power, but it's not an unreasonable amount to cope with if you got a big enough trailer, and we got a big trailer here. All right, let's keep checking things off my list. I'm excited to show it all to y'all today. All right, I managed to get a patch on my hole that I cut in the door yesterday, and that way we have a nice solid mounting point for a surface mount lock that only locks from inside without a pass-through. This is the style I was shooting for, so this would have been on the inside, which is that piece down there, and then that shiny chrome piece is the same as this black one. But unfortunately, this door was made for that lock. This door was not. But now that I have that repaired, it's time to work in the air conditioning. I'm hot. I was waiting on my final coat of clear coat to go on everything because, you know, if I can spill something, I certainly will. And I did not want to spill that gallon of paint in this beautiful carpet. So now it's time to put this carpet in and install my last piece of trim here that I made. For any of you that don't know, I make all of this trim. Everything is milled on table saws, routers, jigsaws. However, I gotta get it cut. But I don't go and buy trim from the big box stores. I did buy these little galley rails, but for the most part everything else is just dimensional lumber that I glue and bind together to create these cabinets. Alright, let's get this carpet in. I've been waiting so long to put that piece of trim in. It's just 2 pieces of wood glued together, but something so satisfying about it. I think the fumes of all this sealant and glue are getting to me. I'm getting goofy. Okay, what else do I have to do? I'm running out of things, y'all. And with a little help from Miss Kelsey plugging that outlet in behind it, that was definitely a second person job. Got the refrigerator in as well. Now this refrigerator does have a drip pan on the back of it I showed y'all last week. And there's our drain hose. So if it does have the chance to form any condensation, which is rare out here, it'll just drain that condensation straight out the trailer onto the ground versus collecting in a drip pan that no one can access because it's only accessible from the back for some reason instead of the front. Okay, let's put that drawer back in. I've been missing it. All right, y'all. The sun is setting and it's the end of another week. And you know what that means. I'm done. I'm about as done as I can be. I do know of a couple things I'm gonna have to clean tomorrow. But for the most part, this project has come to an end, y'all. Today I finished up doing this propane system that runs up to the generator. Me and the owner still have to test that generator. I haven't fired it up yet. I mostly did not want to miss the opportunity to show off all my hard work to all of you that's been waiting to see it. Obviously, I still have tools piled everywhere, and it'll take me a day or two to pack off of this property and clean up and to get us out of here. We'll be doing a full tour of this build but for this week, this is gonna have to be enough for y'all. I'm not gonna start opening cabinets and showing you all the tricks. But I did want you to see it. I know you've been waiting. I certainly have been. I do want to say thank you to each and every one of you that stayed to the end of this week's video, because I know y'all have been waiting on that moment of satisfaction. I certainly have. For over 2 months now, I've been diligently turning away at this project, waiting for this moment. If you haven't checked out some of our other social media like Facebook and Instagram, those are great ways to see still shots of this build as well as all of the other ones I've done, and video content that doesn't quite make it into this week's video or the previous week's either. If you're trying to get a hold of us, that is a great way to message us. You can direct message on Facebook and Instagram, but if you don't have those platforms, that doesn't rule you out for contacting us. You can send us an email at lovehutforlife@gmail.com. We'll see y'all next time. Bye, y'all.